That was Adam's intro song. What's going on? Welcome to the podcast that doesn't have a name.
Yeah, I'm throwing it on you today, bro, for you to introduce the podcast
This
with
is
a name.
the super special Jiu Jitsu Friends podcast.
Yeah, that'll do. Sounds like a Nickelodeon show.
It pretty much is, let's be real. So Kieren here, white belt under the one and only Adam Childs.
Which is moi. I am owner of Alliance Sydney, black belt under Fabio Gurgel. And we are here today to banter on about jiu-jitsu. Before that, if you didn't listen to the last episode and are interested, we spoke about trash talking in jiu-jitsu, a bit of the old school versus new school culture, American jiu-jitsu versus Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I mean, mostly was a rather negative podcast from my side of things. A lot of topics.
You're being real, man. You're being raw.
Yeah, I was being raw. A lot of topics that I've got a few strong opinions on. But that was last episode. Today, we are talking about
a good instructor versus a bad instructor. So essentially, we're talking about a good instructor versus Adam.
Yeah, I was going to make that own dig on myself. But,
I beat you to it, man. So you can beat me up now.
Before we go into that, I do need to point out that Kieren is drinking coffee through a metal straw.
Yeah,
I've never seen it before.
Yeah. So okay, for context for those that don't know me, which is most people, I was in the Navy. I've only just left the Navy, like as in the last few days of the recording of this.
Do they know, or are you just AWOL? Or you just gone AWOL?
They'll find out, bro. Don't worry. Yeah, so I've just left the Navy. In my last position in the Navy, I was a navigation instructor in Sydney here. So I was teaching navigation, and I would always teach class with a coffee or a hot tea, like a green tea or something, and I'd always have it through a hot metal straw. So you're not the first person to comment on the hot liquids through a metal straw, and I won't give up.
Yeah, well, that's all well and good, but you did not explain why you drink it through a metal straw.
Yes. Yeah. So a couple of reasons. Firstly, I find it more convenient to drink through, funnily enough, a metal straw.
Yep.
It's kind of weird when I just have it in a mug at the moment, but when
usually it's in a sippy cup.
Yeah, it's in a sippy cup. In a travel mug, we call them. Yeah, so normally when I have it in my sippy cup, I have it with the metal straw. But I read some research a little while ago that talked about how drinking, one way to minimize coffee stains on your teeth is drinking through a straw. And because I went through a period where I was drinking like 8 coffees, like black coffees a day, and I was getting like, dentists and that were commenting on the teeth stains. Right. And so I swapped to the metal straw. I don't really think it helps, but
the habit's stuck.
It's a habit, and I'm proud of it, and I make no apologies for the metal straws, man.
Is it so crucial to your caffeine intake that if you couldn't find a straw, like, would you opt to not have the coffee?
That's actually a good question. That's a debate I have with myself regularly. This has got nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, but funnily enough, no, I will have the coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will have the coffee.
The addiction to caffeine trumps the need for a straw.
It does. Touch and go at times, but the coffee addiction is strong. So just like my coffee.
Yeah. All right. So talking about instructors.
Yes.
Good and bad instructors. I mean, curious more from I would like to hear a white belt's opinion. I mean, it's a bit different. You did some trial classes at other gyms, but you've never really trained anywhere other than with myself. So,
I mean, yeah.
It's not the best basis, but I would still like to hear what you looked for when choosing a gym, because for myself, it was so long ago when I started jiu-jitsu.
You're a little bit disconnected from it, right?
Yeah, I believe I didn't really know anything. When I started, my only understanding of jiu-jitsu was, like a lot of people, was the UFC and Hoist Gracie. And I believe I just I think I just picked the closest gym, or I picked a gym that had some connection to a Gracie name. It wasn't a Gracie gym, but the instructor was a black belt under Hicks and Gracie.
Wow. Okay.
Um, but I think I may have just picked logistically
Yeah.
the closest gym for me.
And that makes perfect sense, right? Particularly like I don't want to, tell your story for you, but particularly when you first started, some 10 years ago now, you didn't, it's not like you were flush for choice, right?
Yeah, not as much as you have now, for sure. Yeah, like and I mean, I think that's a definite connection to good versus bad instructors, because
Yeah.
you could get away with being a dog shit instructor previously because there it was kind of that or nothing. Particularly when the jiu-jitsu scene started in Sydney. I wasn't in Sydney when it started. I was living and training overseas. But some of the guys that since moving back to Australia that I've, jiu-jitsu, other black belts that I've connected with and whatnot, and just through their stories, they've spoken about, oh, I trained with so-and-so back in the day, he was like the best black belt in Sydney, or he was like one of the first. And then I think about who that person is now, and they weren't relevant then. They're not relevant now. Like, no, I don't want to say not relevant, right? But I mean, they weren't credible.
Don't pull your punches at him. No one's listening.
They weren't, no one's listening. Wah, wah, wah.
I got a button for that.
Yeah. They're, they weren't good instructors back then. They're not good now. Kind of like what we were, in the last episode, we spoke a little bit about, it's different. We had the whole conversation in that episode, but we spoke about how, Kieren mentioned that some of the older Gracies would be equivalent to a purple belt nowadays. And, but it was a different generation, right? Like there's guys that were like the only jiu-jitsu Sydney black belt, back in whatever, 2002 or something. It's like, yeah, but man, like they weren't even at the level of a 2002 black belt in 2002. Like they weren't good then. They're not good now. All right. So you could get away with it
about this like a little while ago. And correct me if I'm wrong here. And this is by no means a slight on anyone or no means a slight on any culture or anything. But with a lot of these gyms opening in places like Sydney and especially the States, was it not an avenue for some people from Brazil to get access to Australia via different visas?
100%.
Like athlete visa, you were saying?
Yeah. So
shed some light on that.
There used to be a visa that you could get. Look, I'm not an immigration lawyer. These laws change all the time. So, but when people are listening to this, that may be a different case. But there used to be this visa you could get. I think it was called a special athletes visa. That essentially the premise of the visa was you could say like, oh, I'm a Brazilian black belt. Like I'm a Brazilian and I have a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That's an exceptional thing to have. Other people in Australia don't have it. So I'm like a special athlete, and they would qualify for a visa, essentially like a PR visa, a permanent residence visa for Australia. That visa either no longer exists at the time of this recording, or it's so hard to get because I have a friend, Luana Alzaguir, who's we used to train together in Brazil. She's a black belt world champion. She is her partner is baby Rodolfo, is Rodolfo Vieira's sister. And she wanted to move to Australia years ago, and she couldn't qualify for the visa as a black belt world champion. Whereas going back further than that,
like 2002 days.
Yeah, or whenever, there are Brazilians in the country right now who are who are just like they're black belts in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but they're maybe the level of a blue belt. But because of the timing, they got their visa, their special athlete visa back in whatever year. And now they're permanent residents here or citizens here or whatever, but they were never good at jiu-jitsu. A lot of Brazilians moved over here and still try to move over here for a better life and to teach jiu-jitsu, but they're not even necessarily passionate about jiu-jitsu. I'll give you an example. In Brazil, there's a common joke that we say, Australia is Brasil que deu certo, which means like Australia's the Brazil that worked out, or that's what it's a joke.
Australia's the Brazil that worked out.
Yeah, that's like a joke that Brazilians say, because a lot of Brazilians come to Australia, and we've got the weather's similar, like we're both in the southern hemisphere. The weather's very similar, the culture's quite similar. Sydney's like Rio, Melbourne's like São Paulo. Like there's a lot of similarities.
Okay.
So a lot of Brazilians want to move here, right? A lot of guys used to and still do try to use jiu-jitsu as a way to get here and teach jiu-jitsu here just as a means to an end to make money. Pretty much the same thing as I did when I lived in Brazil, where I taught English to make money.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
It just was the easiest thing I could do to make money. It made the most sense. Does that mean I'm passionate about English and being an English teacher? No, I'm not, right? I'm passionate about teaching, right? Teaching and teaching jiu-jitsu, but English isn't my thing. The language English isn't my thing.
Clearly.
Clearly, right? Yeah, anyone who knows me,
can hear.
No, you said no one was listening, bro.
Oh yeah, right.
It's it just made sense. It's what I do. Whereas there's a lot of Brazilians that would come here and they're not even back in Brazil, they weren't passionate about jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying everyone does this, but it's kind of then has led to people seeking out gyms where the head instructors are Brazilian. It's not necessarily a better thing. I'm going to use, kind of talk myself up, but use myself alongside with Lachlan Giles as an example. Like I'm someone who left everything to go and live in Brazil. Like I lived in São Paulo for 5 years, and don't get me wrong, some things were made easier for me than they would be for other people because my wife's Brazilian, so it made visas easier.
Yeah.
But where we lived, my wife has no family, so we were removed from them. We had a very hard time living there. After the first week of living in São Paulo, I decided, I was like, I hate this city.
Yeah, right.
And
we definitely need to dig into that deeper.
Yeah, like that's living in Brazil's a whole.
Yeah,
we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah.
But I hated living there, and my opinion never changed after 5 yees. It's not like I didn't want to love it, but like it was really hard, and I didn't enjoy my time there. Apart from there were positive things. The jiu-jitsu is amazing. The people are amazing. The food's amazing, but it's different living somewhere than visiting, when you visit it.
Yeah, of course. Right?
So I sacrificed a lot to get to where I'm at, and I'm passionate about it. And Lockie is similar in the sense that if you're not aware, Lockie is a fully fledged physio. I could be wrong, but I believe he may have had his own practice. I think he maybe had his own physio practice, or at least he was working full time as a physio, and left, he's got his PhD as well and everything, left all that behind to pursue jiu-jitsu. So the point I'm trying to make is myself and Lachlan, we're not Brazilian, but we're more passionate than a lot of Brazilians who come over here just as a means to an end to get a visa to live here, right? Just because you're Brazilian doesn't by default make you a better instructor, right? Lockie's known as one of the best coaches in the world at the moment.
Arguably the best gym in Australia, or at least Victoria.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, that special athlete visa, I don't believe exists anymore, and for good reason.
Yeah, right. So in terms of choosing what makes a good instructor versus a bad instructor, we can only talk about this, and particularly I can only talk about this from my context, that being an Australian, a Westerner, trying to learn a effectively grassroots Brazilian sport. So in terms of what I would look for in a good gym versus a bad gym, I don't really have a whole bunch of experience in different gyms.
Well, I'm looking over at your side of the table, and there's a Adam Child's list of pros and cons. And the con list is long. No, well, let me ask you then, why why did you come into my gym? Was it just logistically made sense, or what was, because when you think about picking a good gym and good instructor, they're kind of to some degree synonymous, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with
depending
that.
on the size of the gym, you know, like for example, our gym, I teach 99% of the classes.
Yes.
Right. There's less than a handful of the adult classes that I don't teach. If you go to a gym like Fabio's gym in Brazil, like it's, you know, it's got like 12 different instructors or something, you know?
Yeah,
So,
which brings up a good point. And I mean, if you go to a gym because of someone like Fabio, and let's inverse that, right? You said that you teach 99% of your classes. So one day, if I get awarded a blue belt, I would be a blue belt under Adam Charles, under yourself, right? Now, if you were to go to Fabio's gym these days and say he's not teaching, I don't know if he is, or I'm just using him as an example.
Yeah.
Say he's only teaching one class per fortnight, and you go to train with Fabio at Fabio's gym to be a black belt under Fabio eventually. And you know, if you only see him once a month and once a fortnight, are you a Fabio black belt?
yeah, like, I mean, I'll use a similar but different example. Like, to answer that question for how it would happen now, well, now the head instructor of Fabio's gym is Michael Lange, actually owns half of the gym, or maybe even more. I'm not sure exactly their business arrangement, but Lange's now the head instructor. Fabio is more or less retired from teaching. So nowadays, realistically, you would be a Lange black belt, or whatever, blue belt. But I would say at grading events, they would probably joint give the belts. But I'll give you another example. Like the time that I was at Fabio's gym, like he has so many classes on the timetable, right? He can't teach them all. The classes Fabio would teach, he would teach Monday to Friday, the lunchtime classes, which were our competition training. And then he would teach there was multiple classes at nighttime, but he would teach the one that was at, I think at 8 o'clock, which was like the advanced class.
It started at 8.
Yeah. Different culture in Brazil.
Yeah.
I used to teach a class in Brazil that didn't start until like, I think it was like 9:30 at night or something like that. I would start teaching a class.
So when are the 9:30 classes coming to Alliance?
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah, I've got classes at my gym now that start at like 6:30 and people complain it's too late.
Wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, grandmas." Yeah, so Fabio would teach those two classes every day, right? And then he would have classes that ran Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. He never, ever taught those classes, right? They were taught by this other instructor, Edu. And so if you were a student who only ever trained in the 7 a.m. classes, you literally never saw Fabio, right? And then there was a grading event, like Fabio would still be the one who gave you the belt. So would you then be a like black belt under Fabio Gurgel, or you're a black belt under Edu, right? I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of a bit of both, right? Because Fabio is like managing the other instructors that
Yes.
are under him.
Yep, that's a good
right.
point.
So I don't know. It's kind of a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
At the moment, right? Like I would say it's more you're a belt under Lange. Let's say, like, for example, there's some gyms where they start to affiliate and make and have more gyms, right? And the owner or the head instructor of the original gym tries to maintain that they're a head instructor at all of them.
That's a bit ridiculous. in
That's
my opinion.
ridiculous, right?
Yes.
It's like people who want to say like, oh, I'm a black belt under Cabrinha. Oh, so you train in LA? Oh, no. Like the Cabrinha affiliate in Germany. It's like, so Cabrinha isn't your coach at all,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yeah,
can't
but
say you're a black belt.
You're too
under-
far removed at that point.
Yeah.
But if you're training at Alliance headquarters and Fabio is setting the timetable, he's setting the tempo, the pace, the techniques, like managing day to day, still teaching, then it's a joint awarded belt. In your example, if you only show up to the 7 a.m. class, joint awarded belt, yeah, okay. I definitely,
in my
listen to me,
opinion,
it's
it
a
would
white
be.
belt. Yeah, that counts.
In my opinion, it would be a little bit more like I think it would be, oh, I'm a black belt under Edu plus Fabio.
yes,
Like
makes
I would,
sense.
like who's your instructor who is coaching you 99% of the time? Okay, well that's the dude who you
Yeah.
should be a belt under. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So I'll be a blue belt under Dan and Jake.
You'll be a blue belt under Dan and Jake.
Dan and Jake are two people that train at Adam's gym for context.
Lots
of
we've been lots of in jokes. We've been trying to get rid of them for years.
Yeah,
but
still around.
Still around.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of what makes a good and bad instructor, you asked me before, like, why did I walk into, Alliance Sydney? Why did I walk into your gym specifically? Was it logistics? What was it? So for a little bit of history, I did a trial at Gracie Barra Bondi Junction back in 2018, I want to say, maybe even a little bit earlier. It might have been 2017. But basically, due to my personal circumstances, like I really wanted to train jiu-jitsu, really, really did. But because of my personal circumstances, I was seagoing. I was in the Navy at that time. I was seagoing, so I was, away for 3 months, 4 months at a time, back for a few weeks and away again. It wasn't feasible logistically for me to commit to training, and I basically bitched out, chickened out, didn't do it. Totally regret it to this day. But once I was more stable in a shore posting, so I wasn't going to sea, I was living in Rose Bay, I would always run past your gym and have a cheeky look inside, be one of those creepers staring in the windows, face pressed up against the glass and all the the fog from my breath, my mouth breathing. So I'd run past and see what was going on. I was still very, very interested in jiu-jitsu, and we can talk about why I was interested and why I started it in a future episode. But the reason I walked in was pretty much logistics. I'll be honest. It was so close. Like it was literally walking distance that I did not have an excuse not to, give you a call, not to trial, like not to sign up.
And I think that's why most people start. Like you and I, like I believe that's why I started, made sense logistically. And I think most people pick their gym if they're brand new to jiu-jitsu.
They Google jiu-jitsu near me or BJJ near me.
They either go off a friend's recommendation or whichever one logistically makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately leads into you potentially having a bad instructor with a gym that has poor culture, because when you're brand new to jiu-jitsu,
you don't know any different.
You don't know any different, right?
Absolutely.
You don't know.
I still don't.
Yeah. I know. I've been making it up day after day. I'm just dreading the day you figure out it's all BS, right?
What's a close guard?
Yeah. Like you don't know if your instructor knows what he's talking about when you're brand new. Like you've just got to go on faith, right? If you haven't been recommended by a credible source, you have no idea whether your instructor's good or bad. That's all you've known, right? And that's a shame because there are a lot of bad instructors who are bad for multiple reasons, or they're bad because they're still operating under a bit of an outdated like teaching method or business model.
What do you mean by multiple reasons? Let's get into specifics. What do you think? I'm going to put you on the spot here, but that's what this is all about. As a black belt, as an instructor yourself, as a gym owner, someone reputable, particularly in the Sydney community of jiu-jitsu, what are some of those things that make someone a bad instructor or generate a bad culture? Obviously, we're not going to name any names, but let's talk about traits or tendencies, if you will.
So the thing that I see the most from bad instructors stems from an outdated culture of not allowing students to train at different gyms, right? And why am I saying that? Because there's a lot of instructors, right, that are not legitimate. And what I mean by not legitimate is they haven't learned what they need to learn. Like, I don't know, like let's take another profession. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu instructors and gym owners who are trying to operate a law firm, right? And they're the head lawyer, they're the partner at the law firm, right? But they actually never passed the bar. They're actually in year 2 of law school. You know, like there's a lot of gym owners who are
Are you
wearing
saying it's the equivalent?
it's the equivalent. Yeah, sorry. There's a lot of gym owners who are operating the gym, but they're not legitimate in the sense that it's like, man, you really don't know that much about jiu-jitsu and the sport of jiu-jitsu and the techniques of jiu-jitsu and everything, yet you're trying to run a gym. So then because they're not legitimate, right? They get some students in the door because maybe logistically they've chosen that gym.
Yeah.
Okay. And now they've got this student who's a customer who, if that customer is exposed to a better gym with a better instructor, a legitimate gym, they then realize that, hang on, there's a law firm that's run by actual lawyers who have passed the bar instead of the one I'm at now where I've just got this dude who doesn't even know what he's talking about. If my customer then goes and trains at that other gym and they realize, oh, this
whole new world.
Yeah, right. They're going to leave them. So what do they do to stop their students from exploring? Well, they don't allow them to train at other gyms. They start bullying their students and they enforce this like traitor mentality, which, it's like using fear and bullying to keep their students in their gym. Right.
And that's something. Now, we should have probably talked about the last episode. If you haven't heard that, we did talk about culture, new versus old. And this whole traitor mentality, there's a word for that in Portuguese, right? From Brazil.
Yeah, it's a creonchi, which is, it's not even it's a Portuguese word, but if you ask a Brazilian who doesn't have anything to do with jiu-jitsu what creonchi means, they won't know. It's like a jiu-jitsu specific slang word in Portuguese, and it essentially translates to a traitor, right? That to give you an idea of how strong that culture used to be, back well before when I started training, like back when Fabio was training, when he was an up and comer, it was so strong back then that if you were being relocated, your work was relocating you from Sydney to Melbourne or whatever. And you're having to, or even further, like work's sending you to London. You now work out of the office in London because of whatever. You're a big investment banker or something. Your instructor, it was so strong, the Creonchi mentality, that your instructor would be like, well, then you've essentially got to quit jiu-jitsu. Like you're not allowed to train at a different gym in London. Like you train here or nowhere.
Wow.
Like that's
not even another affiliate like it must
like
be.
nothing.
Yeah.
There was no, like you couldn't train anywhere. Like it was.
Now, where did that culture come from? Because I would, from my perspective, it's a little bit different to what you're talking about from what makes a good versus bad instructor in today's context, how a big part of that trader mentality, or that even, let's call it what it is, bullying mentality, comes from insecurity, that they know they're a shit instructor and they know that there's more for them to learn.
So it's a little different, right?
Yeah.
Like what we're seeing today is, coming from instructors' insecurities to lose their student or customer, right?
Yeah.
So they don't want them to experience any other type of jiu-jitsu. It's kind of like when you're a kid, and I'm not going to say all parents are bad cooks, right? But kids grow up thinking their mum and dad are the best cooks, and of course, some people grow up with parents and grandparents who are amazing cooks, but they like grow up going, oh, mum and dad's cooking, and then they turn into an adult. They go out to a restaurant and they're like, and they eat some food and they go, oh, salt, right? And they
spices.
They realize that their mum and dad's cooking is atrocious, right? And the only thing good about it is nostalgia.
Mum,
right?
I love your lasagna.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the man.
So, it's similar thing, right? They keep their students for fear of losing them. I think that sort of Creonchi mentality from back in the beginnings of jiu-jitsu, I think it just stemmed from like the, rival gyms wanting to fight each other. And it was like, blood's thicker than water sort of mentality.
Family mentality. Like this is our bond. These turf wars almost.
Yeah. Especially in Rio, right? Was super like tough city.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Obviously that's not so much the case now, but you can see how that mentality trickles into these instructors with insecurities about their ability to teach jiu-jitsu, and they can hide behind the culture of
Yes.
jiu-jitsu
Okay.
to validate their behavior.
So that's your number one. That's your number one trait for a bad instructor. Then is that not wanting you to experience other gyms.
Yeah.
That's a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, I welcome anyone from any team into my gym, whether it's to train full-time or part-time. I'll give you an example. Like I've got one guy who his sons train at my gym. The dad trains at my gym every now and again, but like his main gym where he grades, receives his belts from, his head instructor and everything is a completely different gym. Like, I don't care. Like, and conversely, I encourage my students to, if they want to go visit another gym, like it doesn't bother me like where you train. Cause a lot of people have friends who train at different gyms and they want to roll and train with their friend. Man, it doesn't bother me. Like, if you're talking about the progression and belts of jiu-jitsu, yeah, you got to choose what's your head gym, who is your head instructor, who do you get graded by.
So if I rocked up like in a couple of months with a blue belt,
it would it would be weird.
Yeah. I would
Right.
get bashed.
Yeah.
Not really.
But yeah, that's one of the things I see. If we move on from that and ask, okay, well, let's say we've got an instructor who isn't doing that bullying, right? He's not bullying his students. We've got an instructor who is, more or less knowledgeable in jiu-jitsu, has got his best intentions. Then what are some traits of a bad instructor?
Yeah, let's go there.
So that just more comes down to understanding how to teach jiu-jitsu as a whole, but then how to teach to different students.
Right.
Okay?
So the way someone communicates, communication style.
Yes and no. But I'm more sort of saying, how do you teach a brand new beginner versus how do you teach an advanced student? Right. And another mistake I see is people trying to teach incredibly complicated jiu-jitsu to a guy who's got 2 weeks experience of jiu-jitsu. Right. So let's say a good instructor understands that when you're teaching new students, it's not necessarily important the techniques you teach them. I mean, it is, but it's more the way you teach them. You teach a brand new student 2 ways. You teach them through self-defense, right? Because it's something they can understand.
Yeah.
Right. It gives them a point of reference.
Real world context. Yeah.
They may have never been in a fight before, but they understand if you say, oh, someone tries to punch you, someone tries to tackle you because they want to steal your wallet, you do this, right? It makes sense to them.
You ground it in the known.
Yeah. Opposed to you get someone brand new and you're like, okay, they grab your sleeve, you're in Spider Guard. They're like, Spider Guard, like why would I ever be there? Like it doesn't make any sense to them. A bad instructor forgets, that this student doesn't have this common knowledge, right? You're not operating on common knowledge yet, right? When you're teaching an advanced student, right? Let's say I'm teaching a class of whatever, like, let's say hypothetically blue belts and up, purple belts and up. There's a whole bunch of, assumed knowledge that I don't need to explain a hip escape in that class, right?
Yeah.
But bad instructors forget a lot of these things that brand new people don't know.
You know what? I see these same bad instructor traits. Obviously, I mentioned that my previous job was a navigation instructor in the Navy. I saw the same thing. I don't mind talking a bit of shit here because they're never going to listen to this, but what a bad instructor would do in that context would be frustrated with the student or put the blame back onto the student when they didn't understand what that instructor was explaining or couldn't pick it up quick enough because it was so far removed or so long ago that instructor was in the student's shoes, the student's position, that everything seems so basic and common knowledge and simple. But what they're forgetting is the years and years and years of reinforcement of that knowledge for it to become second nature.
Right? Like you see it a lot as well with, I'll give you an example, what I consider the 4 fundamental like movements of jiu-jitsu that you need to be able to do these to do everything else. I kind of consider it like the jab, cross, hook, uppercut, right, of jiu-jitsu, which would be your front roll, your back roll, your hip escape, and your technical stand-up. They're so basic, they happen in 99% of warm-ups in jiu-jitsu. And you see instructors just throw the student in, a brand new student. The amount of times I've seen brand new students do a shoulder roll or a back roll completely over their neck and hurt themselves, right, on day one, because the instructor's forgotten, or maybe negligence, right? But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They've forgotten that this brand new person, like, doesn't know how to do a shoulder roll or a back roll, right? They've forgotten that most adults don't roll around on the ground, right? So they don't know how to roll forwards or backwards over themselves without busting up their neck. You know, you see it all the time, right? So the first thing is, we often teach through self-defense, right? They don't have this assumed knowledge. So you want to ground it in something they can understand. But the second thing, when I mentioned that instructors teach way too complicated jiu-jitsu, is they teach like combinations opposed to a sequence. What I mean by that is, if I have a less experienced student, I don't want to teach a combination. I don't want to teach, okay, we're going to do this half guard pass. We do this. Okay. And then we go, everyone go off and drill it. We come back. Okay. Now I tried this and my opponent did this. So I do this pass.
You're considering that a combination.
Yeah. Right. Why don't you teach like that? Because when you got a brand new student and I say, okay, I try pass A, right? And it worked. Cool. Job done. Now I try pass A. My opponent does this. So I go to pass B. You've got a brand new student who they don't understand why the opponent would do that in the first place. You know, like, oh, I go for this pass and then they put their foot on my bicep, so I have to do this. They're like, but why would they put the foot on the bicep? Like, it doesn't make sense to them yet because they don't have enough knowledge to understand the chess game of it yet, right? You teach sequences to beginners, right? You teach, okay, we do this guard pass. Now we're in side control. Right. Now we go from side control. We do this technique to go to mount. Now we're in mount.
The difference is the assumption in a sequence is that each step has been successful, whereas a combination is a response to your opponent.
Yeah, the combination is the back and forth of opening and closing doors, right? The counter and counter. Yep. Whereas a sequence is just going from like A to Z or whatever.
Yeah, through B. Yeah. A, right? B, C, D.
Because then they're learning how to connect techniques, right? They're learning a wider range of positions in jiu-jitsu opposed to spending a whole week just being in spider guard. Yeah. And then they go off and attempt a roll and
all they know is spider guard.
And then they don't end up in spider guard. They have no idea what's going on.
And you're stuffed.
Right?
Right.
That is a big mistake that instructors make. It's not hard to teach advanced jiu-jitsu. Teaching a competition class is more about like pushing your students than it is necessarily teaching the jiu-jitsu. It's teaching beginners that you can see the difference between a good and bad instructor.
Right. So someone like myself, say for example, I live in, I don't know, I'll pick somewhere random like Perth, and I'm brand new to the sport. I walk into a gym. Do you recommend that I just go with logistics, go with a gym at the start, or trial a whole bunch of different gyms, or how, if you were knowing what you know now as a black belt, if I picked you up, plonked you in Perth, and you had a plethora of gyms to choose from around you, they were all more or less the same price, the same distance from your home, how would you go about choosing a gym?
So knowing what I know now, yes, all things being equal, price, logistics, and everything. So probably one of the first things I think is really important if you're looking for a gym, and sorry to cut myself off, yes, I would recommend trying multiple gyms because unless you've been recommended by someone, right, you want to find a gym where you enjoy being there, right? If you don't fit in, I don't want to say fit in, but like if it's just not your vibe,
not your scene,
man, you're just not going to enjoy your time there. I'm not saying you have to be best friends with your training partners and the instructor, right? But for the average person, you're doing jiu-jitsu for a hobby, right? So if you don't enjoy your time there, man, I hear so many people who don't like going to the gym that they go to.
That
Like,
boggles my mind.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you paying money to go to a gym that you don't like? Like I don't get it, right? It's different if you're like, let's say me, for example, it was not I mentioned in the last episode, it was not the most welcoming environment for me training in Brazil, right? It was very like unfriendly to gringos, but I was there with
Gringos?
gringos, like is like a slang term for foreigners
Right.
in Brazil. I was there, you know, with a goal of like my mentality, the way I explain it to people is if jujitsu gyms were like universities, the Alliance headquarters was Harvard. So I went out of my way to study at Harvard. The same way that some people move across the country or across the world to go to a particular uni because it has the best robotics department in the world, or they has
It
the
was a means to an end for you.
yeah.
At the
So
time.
so I was willing to suck up whatever bits were less pleasant. But the average person does jujitsu for fun, for a hobby, you know, like because they enjoy it. If you don't enjoy the atmosphere at your gym, I would look elsewhere, right? Past that, how do you know if your instructor's any good without a recommendation? How do you know if they're legitimate? It's hard to
Just roll them, bro.
yeah, just roll them. Yeah, really, you know, you're not going to be able to know if the techniques they're teaching are legitimate, unfortunately. But how do you know if they're a good instructor? Well, like I mentioned, are they teaching in the appropriate way? Are they teaching you as a beginner through sequences? That's like I mean, it's quite a black and white way to put it.
Yeah.
Are they concise in their explanation? Okay. I mean, in conversation, I can be known to ramble, but if you've ever learnt jujitsu from me, probably one of the feedback I get the most from students is how they enjoy how I'm nice and concise. I don't spend 2 hours explaining one technique, overloading them with information, right? Give a few details to the technique and, you know, then there's time to drill it and you move on, right? Really clear, concise, give the crucial details in the technique, right? And as time goes on and techniques are retaught, details are added and added and added. Also depends if you're, you know, like if I'm teaching a day one white belt, whatever, an armbar, right? It's very basic details than when I'm teaching that blue belt and armbar. Again, because the higher the belt, the more assumed knowledge I can teach from.
So just on that, if you are picking a gym and the gym has like, for example, I know that some gyms have beginner classes where it's only white belts allowed or only white and blue belts or whatever. Like there's an experience cap on the class. And then they have their advanced class where it's like blue belts and above or however they divide the classes.
Yeah.
What's your take on a gym that does that?
That divides.
That separates the classes in terms of experience and rank.
I think it's the correct way to do it. It's easier said than done because for it to make sense from a business point of view, you got to remember at the end of the day, the gym's a business.
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
Someone is having to pay the bills, right? Okay, so maybe some people run gyms as more of a hobby charity thing, but usually as a gym owner, right, it's how you make your living, right? And you're paying rent, commercial rent, and all these things. So it is a business. And logistically, it can be challenging because unless you've got this big ball and gym with multiple mats and multiple instructors, you can often only have one class running at a time, right? It's not every gym that can have 2 or 3 different classes running at the same time. And why that's important is because the before work, the lunchtime, and the after work time slots are the valuable time slots. That's when people train, right? So, you know, obviously people listening, not everyone has been to Alliance Sydney, but you know, if you walk into Alliance Sydney, you can't have a beginner's class and an advanced class happening at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's a small gym at the moment. But ideally, you do separate the classes. So the student knows what they're getting when they walk into that class, right? So let's say you have no idea, right? It's just every single class on the timetable is just labeled jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Okay. and you walk in as a white belt, or maybe you walk in, maybe you're already a blue belt, but you've just been slammed at work all week and you just want to go to the gym to switch off and, just do a bit of jiu-jitsu. And turns out, you had no idea, but you've just walked into the most grueling competition training you've ever known because you had no idea, because it was just labeled as jiu-jitsu and the coach just decided to do that on the day. Or let's take another point of view. What if you're a 3rd degree black belt, right? And you want to go to the gym and train jiu-jitsu.
Now, this is something I can relate to.
Yeah. And you walk in and turns out that on that particular day and class, the instructor has decided to teach the most basic of basic fundamentals. And turns out you spend 2 hours doing hip escapes and cross collar chokes from mount. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a black belt and then, drilling basics again, fundamentals again, but maybe not what you wanted to do on that day in the gym. Whereas if you've got on your timetable beginners, you've got, it's labeled, what you're walking into. Like if the class that you're attending says, jiu-jitsu for absolute beginners, and you walk in as a black belt or a brown belt or a purple belt, and then get salty because you spent the whole class doing
You're a bit of an idiot.
A scissor sweep. It's on you, bro. It was in the name.
Yeah.
Right. Same as if you're a white belt and you rock up to it, or whatever belt, and you rock up to a competition class and then complain that, people were rolling too hard, dude, like don't go to that class. Like it's in the name. So that's the correct way to separate your timetable and your classes and your teaching. But logistically, it can be a challenge for small business owners because you don't have the multiple mat space to have different classes running at once, because if 7 p.m. is the prime time slot, if you don't have multiple mats, well, it's either going to be a beginner class or a no-gi class or an advanced class or a competition class. It can't, it's only going to be one of those.
Yeah, can't be all of them.
Can't be all of them. But if you have multiple mats and multiple instructors, you can have a beginner's class running at 7 p.m. and an advanced class running at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a logistical challenge, but it's the correct way to do it.
Right. So that's, I suppose, a feature of not so much a good instructor versus a bad instructor.
That's more a good gym.
Yeah. Which, as we mentioned, they're a little bit synonymous.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about them interchangeably, I suppose.
But just to go back when you were asking, what would the advice be knowing what I know now, right? So if it logistically makes sense, right? If you gel with the vibe of the gym, right? The atmosphere of the gym, the instructor teaches concisely. Again, you're not going to know if the techniques he's teaching is legitimate, but let's just say they are. He teaches concisely, really clearly, really well spoken, right? What should we look for then? Man, you want an instructor who's invested in you, right? Like, I'm a big believer in wanting my students to become better than me, right? It's not too hard for them. Right? It's just a few weeks, you'll be there.
Low bar.
Yeah, low bar. Like when I roll with my students and they, let's say if I roll with a student and they submit me, I'm happy and sad, like the competitor in me is upset, but the instructor in me is super happy, right? One of my favorite self quotes I like to say is one of my good friends and students, Joey, who we mentioned earlier or in the last previous episode. Joey's a brown belt. He is one of the owners of Jungle Brothers and one of the owners of Bulletproof for BJJ. And Joey is a tough brown belt, right? And he's come a long way since he started training with me. And what I often say to Joey is I say, Joey, I regret every single thing I teach you. Right? And I mean that in a way that like I teach Joey something or fix something of Joey's. And then the next thing you know, when I roll with him, like he's all of a sudden harder to pass, or all of a sudden he's sweeping me or submitting me or something. And the instructor in me loves that. I'm super happy. The competitor in me, not so much. But I think it's important to find an instructor who's, invested in you, right? And knows how to teach you. One of the things that makes Fabio such an amazing teacher, and if you don't know a lot about Fabio, right? Fabio Gurgel is one of the founders of Alliance being the most successful competition team in the history of jiu-jitsu. And Fabio himself has created more world champions than any other instructor.
12 world champions at this point.
Something like that. Alliance has 12 adult male world titles, but Fabio has the list of students under him who are world champions. If you looked across all colored belts, man, the number would be astronomical. But some of his more notable black belt student world champions are, Cobrinha, Lucas Lepri, Marcelo Garcia, Bruno Malfacini, Bernardo Faria, Gabi Garcia, Luana Alzaguir, Tarsus Humphreys, Serginho Moraes, Léo Nogueira. These are all black belt world champions under Fabio. Tarsus Humphreys is another one. And what makes Fabio one of the best instructors is his ability to understand how to teach each student individually. I'll give you an example, right? So I was training one day with Fabio. I think I was a blue belt at the time. And it was the second class of the day. So I was already onto my second training session. It was the middle of summer. Fabio's gym didn't have air conditioning at this time. The gym was packed. It was humid. The drinking fountain was broken. So, we didn't have water unless you had brought your own. And it was like the last roll of the night. And I was rolling with Fabio. And Fabio's known for his top pressure. And he passed me and he mounted me and he had me in a Superman armbar, which if you don't know what that is, it's like a inverted armbar or cutting armbar, predominantly done from mount. And at the same time, I was getting stuck in the dark room, or quarto escuro, which is when like your face is stuck in their like gi and chest area. You're getting smothered essentially. And Fabio hadn't hyperextended my elbow just yet. He had the submission, but he hadn't extended it. And I thought I was going to pass out just from lack of oxygen from everything, the roll, how tired I was, how hot it was, his chest smothering my face, and I tapped. And when he got up off me after I tapped, he ripped me apart so hard. Like he was just going, "You never tap from that shit. I hadn't put the submission on. That makes a weak sole. The next time you do that, I won't let go of your arm." And then he was like pulling aside other black belts. "Adam, weak shit over here, did this and that." Dude, like demolished me. Like I almost cried, right?
Wow.
Like, and I was so distraught. And then like the next day, he like, I don't know if he did this intentionally or not, but I was rolling with one of the other black belts who caught me in the exact same position and then extended the arm. Cause I remember when I was there, I was like, there is no way I'm tapping until the submission's on.
Yeah.
And I tapped when the submission was on and like looked up and Fabio was watching the whole thing. And Fabio was like, it was like, yeah, if you tapped early, I was going to tell him not to let go.
Oh shit.
And you might be listening to this thinking like, what a bully. And that's not the case. Fabio is just so good at understanding that for me, that was the best thing to happen for me in that situation. I've never once since then tapped from pressure or from, lack of oxygen when it wasn't a choke. Never. I've never tapped from anything short of a
something
submission.
that made you just uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, never since then. But Fabio wouldn't do that with every single student.
Right.
There's other students that exact same scenario could play out and they would tap and he would get up and just be like, "Oh, I didn't quite, you should have tried to move more, like to buy some space for your face. I hadn't extended the arm yet." He knows how to treat each individual student appropriately to push them the most and get the most out of them.
Right.
Right. And that's, I think, like a golden trait. If an instructor has that trait, that's something special, because not everyone has that. Not everyone has that ability to, like a personal trainer who maybe they can tell, how you see it in like boot camps and personal trainers, how some personal trainers are like, come on, you maggot, you piece of shit, right? And other personal trainers like, come on, dude, you can do it. One more.
Different approaches,
right? And some personal trainers are like, this is my flavor, this is my style, take it or leave it. And other personal trainers can tell which method is going to get the most out of that client.
Yeah. I know which one's better, right?
Right. Yeah. And Fabio can do that.
Yeah.
And that is, if you can find a coach who has that, man, that's golden.
So your story about tapping under pressure sort of reminded me of something that happened to me at your gym where I tapped.
Was that under my pressure?
No, this was not so much a pressure tap, but I was rolling with Joey, again, brown belt.
Yep.
And he was working on a submission. Now, this was a little while ago. I will admit that I probably only had like 3 or 4 months experience at this point. So I was even junior than I am now. And in my mind, he had a submission and he was, about to put it on or whatever. So I tapped. Like I felt that he had something, but he didn't put it on. I was not under any pressure. I just, in my mind, it's like, oh, okay, you got me. I just want to restart. And he was like, what did I get you with? I'm like, the submission. He's like, what submission? And I'm like, got called out big time. And he didn't give me a full on roasting like you were explaining with Fabio, but he gave me like a disappointed dad or disappointed brother chat about like, bro, like I had nothing. Like you're a bitch.
So let me address that first, and then I'll tell another funny story. But yeah, you can't, like if the submission isn't there, unless
I don't know what the fuck I was doing.
Unless you're nursing an injury or something.
I wasn't. I was being a pussy. I was being a bitch because he's a higher belt, and in my mind it's like, oh, he's a higher belt.
You'd already given up.
Yeah, exactly. 100% it. That's 100% it.
And that's you can't have that approach.
Absolutely not.
Again, like we talked last episode about culture and unspoken rules, and sometimes people like don't roll properly with higher belts. Out of respect,
people don't roll. I feel it as well, and maybe this is a topic for another time. But I mean, now that we're on it, people don't roll properly with lower belts, and it can be insulting. Like it goes both ways. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? If I'm rolling with you, if you were putting it on me every 2 seconds, I'd get submitted, right? It wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be super fun for you.
It wouldn't be fun for me. It wouldn't be fun for you. Like it's shit for everyone. Like obviously you let me work and then you tap me like 3 seconds before the buzzer. That's how it goes. But if I'm rolling with like a purple belt or something like that, or even a blue belt or whoever, and they're going too light, or sometimes I'm not naming any names, but some people that I've rolled with go so light that it's insulting. Like literally go ragdoll, let you do whatever you want, and then turn it on. It's I don't like that. Well, that's a pet peeve.
Yeah, I get that. You'll find a lot of women in jiu-jitsu hate that. Like they hate when guys don't roll with them properly. I mean, obviously it's going to depend on the weight difference and everything, but I know heaps of girls. Like I used to train with heaps of different girls in Brazil, and they would, in the beginning, like when I didn't know them that well, right? They would say to me like, man, like roll properly with me. Like they hated it if you was like, oh, I'm rolling with a girl, I'll go easier, and nowadays when I roll with like whichever girl I'm rolling with or training with, for me, I'm like, oh, it's just another purple belt or black belt or whatever. Like I just more or less roll with them like they're a guy, like, respecting their ability. Right. I've been bashed by plenty of girls in jiu-jitsu, right? But when it comes, I'll tell you what I do, for example, as an instructor, if I'm rolling with lower belts, and what I say to students in terms of this, you should be respectful to higher belts and maybe don't roll super hard with them or whatever. And I say to lower belts, roll with me like I'm the same color belt as you. Like, come at me, bro. I'm good enough to handle it. And if you get me, right, let's say you pass me or tap me or whatever, the instructor in me is going to be stoked, right? I'm going to be super happy for you. I'm not going to be, the competitor in me is going to hate it. But also because I often roll differently, like I try to emulate the way I learned, which is from Fabio, right? So I really try to find that, treat the individual the way that they need to be treated to get the most out of them. So if that's a bit of like, not bullying in the
Tough
negative
love.
term. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that student needs tough love, I try to give it to them. If that student needs a little bit more sort of like, emotional
Encouragement,
support
yeah.
or whatever, I try to give that to each individual. And so that's often reflected in the way I roll. So let's say, I'll use you as an example, Kieren, right? Like sometimes I'll be rolling with you and I'll intentionally just bash you, right?
Yep.
Because
Stop punching me.
yeah, like, I mean, that sounds bad because it's a black belt bashing up a white belt. I don't mean bash as in hurt, but Kieran's someone who wants to compete a lot, wants to be successful in jiu-jitsu, right? So every now and again, like, okay, if that was every roll, it would not be very fun or progressive to the development of your jiu-jitsu. But every now and again, for you to like cop to get smashed a bit, kind of like a surfer having a session where he cops a big wipeout. Like, you got to be pulled in line a little bit every now and again, right?
Humbled. Yeah.
But sure. Then other rolls, I'll maybe be a bit more flowy because I want to see how you're moving. Sometimes I'll roll with you and I'll let you take my back and, kind of not really start defending until I'm, 90% of the way into the submission. Cause then, essentially what I'm doing is I want to see if I give you 95% of the armbar, can you finish it?
Yeah.
Right. And, hopefully the answer is yes. Right. Like if I'm rolling with a brown belt and I give them 95% to the submission, of course they're going to finish it. Right. Like the skill difference between me and that student, they can finish that 5%. Whereas, with a brand new white belt, and I'm sure even as a white belt, you've felt this, like with a 2-day-old white belt, you could let them put you in an armbar and you're probably going to get out, right? Because they don't know. So, I'll roll appropriate, I'll change the way I roll, but that only works if the student is bringing it every time. Like, man, I tell my students to bring it when they roll, right?
I suppose the gap between me and yourself and the relationship, I think relationship's a better term, the relationship that I have with you, and I understand that. I understand that if you let me get 95% of the way into I think the most recent one was like a rear naked choke. You get me 95% there, then you start defending. Can I finish it? Yes or no or whatever. But I think from my position, if I'm rolling with a higher blue belt or a purple belt and they let me sweep, they let me get the takedown, and I could feel it. Like we're not people are intelligent.
Yeah.
We understand, right? Talking the royal we. I'm speaking for all white belts here. We as white belts, we as white belts,
we stand united. We're people too.
We feel it, right? And it gets a little bit. Again, I'm not saying that we want to get smashed and blah 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 blah. But when the skill difference isn't as great and the relationship isn't there, and they're not my instructor, let me put it to you: is this my ego talking? But if they're not my instructor and they're playing the instructor role, that frustrates me because I don't know where I stand with them, and I haven't earned the sweep. I haven't earned the submission or whatever, or even. I mean, I don't want to put this in the same category, but if you get a submission on a high belt and then they coach you into it, that's another thing together.
Worst,
that's like the Jedi.
I have another funny story about that.
Oh man, that's happened to me a few times and it's despicable. But let's stay on track for now. What's your take on that? Do you think a blue belt, with my position now that I'm in now, like a more or less nearly a year in a white belt, should a more or less a mid to junior blue belt be conceding things to me?
No, like, look, it's all in context. Like, are you having a light roll at the end of a beginner's class? Maybe it doesn't matter so much, right? Are you rolling in the advanced class or the competition class? Like, there should be zero conceding. Like, when I think of a competition class, I mean, I'm not even going to let you get halfway towards an advantage. If you scored an advantage point on me, let alone a sweep or a submission, man, you earned it because I did not.
That's what I'm talking about. I want to feel like I've earned what I progressed.
So what I would say
to the lower belt.
So what I would say to you, right? In regards to, man, people keep doing this to me. Let's talk about in our gym.
Yeah.
If you're visiting a gym, I mean, I lean on the side of like, man, just be a nice person. You're visiting someone's gym. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? But if you said to me, if we were having this conversation and you're like, man, people are doing this a lot in the gym, my reply would essentially be, well, man, if they're conceding stuff, make them pay for it. If so-and-so lets you have that sweep, then you murder them, right? Make them regret like not respecting your jiu-jitsu, right?
For sure.
If they concede the sweep or the pass, sub them, right? Put their back against the wall when they have, they have to start turning it on, right? Because they're being disrespectful,
For clarification, I'm not saying that everyone's doing this. I'm just saying that like this is a thing that gets done in jiu-jitsu and people, people do talk about it. So I just wanted to get your take.
Yeah, man.
Don't come bash me, everyone.
No, in my opinion, you should be putting it on.
Cool.
It is at the end of the day like a full contact combat sport, right? And if someone's always giving you stuff for free, it's no fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's no fun. You wouldn't play a game of tennis and intentionally miss the ball and be like, "Oh, nice shot, bro." You'd be like you were looking at your phone.
Yeah,
like,
you weren't even on the court.
Yeah. What do you mean, nice shot? Like you didn't even try.
Yeah, for
right.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all in context, right? Like you got to take it by the roll. Sometimes it's going to be, you can feel, right? Sometimes you can feel like, oh, it was fine. It's not that big of a deal because whatever. And other times you feel like, man, say something to them as well.
Yeah.
Like when it's your teammates, you should be there to help each other. Be like, pull them up on it. Like, bro, like, why'd you give me that sweep?
Yeah.
And I say it sometimes, even when I'm rolling with like you or other lower belts or something, you'll concede something. And I'm like, I'll be like, dude, I didn't even sweep you. You just fell over.
Yeah.
Why didn't you get back up?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's more of an instructor thing opposed to you letting me do something. But I mean, don't be afraid to pull someone up if they're doing what you think is the wrong thing.
Yeah. Right. Within reason, obviously.
Yeah, within reason. I mean, don't, definitely tell them if
the white belt revolt, it's coming worldwide. Instigated by Adam Childs.
Look,
you heard it here first.
White belts are cool, man. They're cool.
We're people too, right?
Yeah, they're people too. You need white belts around.
Yeah, for sure.
With no
You're gonna smash.
Yeah, that's right. Where am I going to get my ego boost if there's no white belts?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, man. No, this is a really good topic, I think. Particularly, I mean, we did get a little bit off track, but that's the way of it. I think, me personally, I got a very good insight from a more senior jiu-jitsu practitioner's perspective on good instructor versus a bad instructor, what to look for in a gym. I think.
Well, let me ask, like, before we sign off, then, I mean, whatever you want to say, right? This won't affect your chances of being promoted by me. But okay, it's not like you've trained at 10 different gyms, so you don't have comparisons. But just in your experience, if you look at me as your instructor, what do you think? Okay, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm a good instructor. I mean, I think I am, right? But what do you enjoy about the way I teach, or what do you dislike about the way I teach? If we're using me as an example, like I'm in our duo, I'm an instructor, you're my student, right? Is there a particular something that makes you go like, oh, I like the way that Adam teaches, or don't like?
So I suppose I can talk to this from experience talking to a lot of other white belts, because if you don't know, I have a YouTube channel, YouTube series, Road to Blue Belt, where I literally vlog essentially and post videos about my journey. And through that, I've
from white belts to white belts, right? Often is how you mention it, like
from white belt to white.
No,
from a white belt's perspective to white belts. This is addressing other white belts. So through that, I have built relationships with like white belts all around the world, particularly in the States or here all around Australia. So I get a lot of different insights about how other people or other gyms do it, because there's thousands of jiu-jitsu gyms out there and thousands of black belts, thousands of instructors. And one thing I can say that I do definitely notice a stark comparison, and I've mentioned this before, but it's directly attributed to you as an instructor, is a cultural shift between how you treat white belts as people, or how you treat beginners as people, as individuals. For example, like I didn't even know that you weren't allowed to ask higher belts to roll. I didn't know that was a thing, and I published a video encouraging people to do that, right? I didn't even know that it was a cultural no-no. I like how that your relaxed nature, and that is a norm, that I can ask a blue belt to roll. I can, ask a purple belt to roll within respect, within reason, all of that good gear. So I like not only like that is the way you instruct, but the more accurately the culture that you've generated at Alliance. So that's the biggest thing that I really, really enjoy. I suppose I'm not going to publicly criticize you. That's
like, look, we've established no one's listening. So
yeah. Yeah, definitely. No one's listening. It's just you and me talking. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really have enough context, enough experience to do justice to this response, but from my opinion, like gauging from other people's experience and generating so many different relationships with so many white belts, as I mentioned, worldwide, then the cultural thing is the biggest stark comparison. And I really like the fact that, I mean, if I wasn't allowed to roll with higher belts, I know that some gyms, white belts only roll white belts, and all colored belts are having their own, party at the colored belt time. That's cool. Yeah. If you told me, like, for example, if you made a rule like or your instruction style changed that white belts weren't allowed to roll anyone else other than white belts, that would really piss me off. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. That would not offend me. Like I'd have to
because the other white belts are dog shit.
No. That's not it at all. That's not it at all. It's kind of like segregating. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's a skill thing. I'm not saying I'm as good as a colored belt. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that it's a respect thing. And you know what I mean? And you treat each individual with respect, and you tailor your instruction style to the individual. And as you mentioned how that's what Fabio does. I feel like when you were describing Fabio at some point, I felt like you were also describing a lot of yourself, which
look at that.
No, I meant in terms of like instruction. Let's say you're as good as Fabio, dude. Pull your head in. No, but no, that's. I suppose from my perspective, I consider you as a good instructor. So if I was going to value add to what a white belt thinks a good instructor is, it's that tailored approach, that individualization, and what makes a good gym is the culture. Yeah. I think culture,
and I think that
makes a good gym.
That goes back to what I said before. If it logistically makes sense and everything, like you really want to enjoy the vibe, the atmosphere, the culture of the gym. If you get bitten by the jiu-jitsu bug, you're there 5 days a week, right?
Minimum.
Yeah, minimum.
Don't be a bitch. Yeah. 2 a day.
Yeah. And look,
quit your job.
At the end of the day, let's say you've got multiple gyms and they all tick all these boxes, right? I mean, you're going to always prefer one to the other. The same way that in life, you can't be friends with everyone. There's people that won't like you for no real reason other than they just don't, maybe not even it's that you don't get along, but you just don't really have any sort of connection. And like, I know a perfect example is like when Levi first started training overseas, he was training at Cobrinhas in LA with Alliance. And I don't know, he just didn't really enjoy Cobrinhas' teaching style and like ended up in New York under Murilo and Unity, right? Does that mean Cobrinhas is a bad instructor? No, but it just wasn't
the right fit for him.
Yeah, it just didn't fit the way that, Levi wanted to learn and wanted to train, right? So, you're going to sometimes as well lose students just because they don't enjoy the way you teach. Doesn't mean you're a bad instructor, right? So, and again, I think this kind of goes back to why instructors use like bullying and fear to keep their students, right? Because they're not okay with the fact that they could do everything right and still lose the student.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that happens. I mean, you should always look at yourself when you do lose a student, make sure you didn't do anything wrong, right? But sometimes, students just aren't going to enjoy the way you teach, the way, your vibe. I mean, it happens, bro, and that's okay, right?
I think that's the key
you know,
message, that it's okay. And
yeah, the same way if I have a Mexican restaurant and you don't come in because you wanted pasta, well, that's okay,
you should
right?
start serving pasta at your restaurant, Adam.
Wait, hang on. I'm going to start serving pasta at the gym, right? It is now an
Next to the fridge.
all-you-can-eat buffet jiu-jitsu gym.
I know some students of yours that would probably enjoy that. All right, on that food-related note, thanks for, if you're listening for this long, thanks so much for supporting the podcast. Make sure to follow us on your platform of choice, on your podcast platform of choice, and leave us a review.
Do it.
5-star reviews go a long way.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. If you have any, can you leave comments on podcasts? How do you comment on a podcast?
So you can leave a review on the podcast, on particularly Apple Podcasts, but we're going to set up a avenue for you to drop us some comments. But for now, just jump over to Alliance
Sydney BJJ Instagram.
Yeah.
Or we've got that's the main way that you can get through to me, to get through to Kieren.
Yeah, it's just either my YouTube or my Instagram. Either leave a comment on YouTube or my Instagram, which is my name, Kieren Lefebvre, and you will find that in the description of the show.
Word. All right, guys. Thank you, and we will catch you on the next one.